Hey everybody, welcome to Playbook by Laserforce Loveland. This podcast is a platform for laser tag players to geek out about strategies, stories, and ongoings in the Laserforce scene, and for you to join us as another player at the table. My codename is Mischief. I'm a player from Loveland, Colorado, who loves to talk about laser tag. Tonight, I am joined by SgtTucker, my friend and teammate from Loveland, Colorado. How you doing, SgtTucker? Or Joe?
Doing good. Yeah, either or.
We're on a first name basis, but for all the viewers out there, that's SgtTucker to you.
We've known each other a long time.
So I wanted to bring you on tonight, Joe, just to talk about Nats. And just as I feel like I need to preface this because right now, I think as we're recording, everyone's out in Syracuse, New York, trying to move on from Nats, go to the next tournament. But part of our job as the world champions right now is to make sure that people don't forget that we're the world champions. And we keep talking about Nats all throughout the year. And for personal reasons, I haven't really felt any motivation to talk about Nats, but a lot of time has passed and we've processed some things, and I want to start talking about it with some people. So you were the first one that had the opportunity, and so wanted to get your story a bit tonight. How have you felt since Nats?
Good. It's been back to kind of business as usual for members nights, and just getting everything back into kind of the swing of things. Like you said, everybody's getting either is in Syracuse right now or is getting ready to fly out, and so there's a lot of people moving around and doing stuff, moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And, you and I have been in a lot of tournaments where we didn't take first, and so the desire to move forward in a tournament you didn't win is pretty strong. So I totally get it too. But, this was a long time coming, a huge journey for us both. It's something I think is worth at least making sure we talk about and record before the memories become too sort of faded. So I wanted to start off by asking you, Joe, when you knew that we were hosting Nats, when did that first come? When did you know that we were going to host?
So it had kind of been getting thrown around. We were talking about the New Zealand one. We talked about who would be potentially next between either us or Syracuse. And then it was decided pretty quickly that we would host it. And so we kind of got the ball rolling as quick as we could with that. I think Jeff sat down with us a month after Nats, and we got dates kind of set up. We got a relative game plan kind of set up, and we started kind of laying the groundwork to get people invested, and yeah. Went from there.
And you were the site rep at the time, right?
Still am, but yeah.
Yeah, you still are, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was me and John Calkins, Simply Okay, sat down and spoke with him for about an hour, went over what we would need from him, what he wanted to see from us, kind of laid some groundwork, lots of stuff, so.
For sure. So you had a pretty heavy hand in running the tournament and prepping for the tournament. What were some of the big things that, as far as the tournament coordinating side, what was on your mind?
I did want to try and make sure people had as much fun as they could. As I'm sure a lot of people who attended are aware, it got a little hectic at times, and so the goal was just to try and get as many games as we could in for people, especially for the travelers, and try and help get everything running and make sure that everything went as smoothly as we could. Unfortunately, one of the big ones that immediately fell through was we had a really, really big fire break out right before the tournament.
I forgot about that.
About a week and a half. Yeah, we had one of the biggest fires Colorado's ever had break out in the mountains about 45 minutes, an hour away from Loveland. And so we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to host suddenly because the air quality was getting so bad. Evacuation notices were starting to move closer and closer into Loveland. We had a strong suspicion that we wouldn't have to leave because it had a lot of ground to cover. quite a few large roads to cross, and so it was unlikely that it would be canceled. But suddenly, there were a lot of questions, and in particular, it threw off. We were going to go to the sports park nearby, mess around. I was going to bring some cornhole. I was going to have Jarrett Ghost was going to bring some baseballs and some bats and some gloves for people to hit and throw around. We were going to bring some soccer balls to just kick around and have fun. But unfortunately, we kind of had to cancel all of that. And alongside that, the barbecue that we were going to get catered, which really sucked and caused a lot of last minute sorting.
Yeah, for sure. I remember all this, and I'm so sorry. Just moments before the show, we decided we weren't going to talk about all the tomfoolery and difficulties, but it just struck me talking with you right now that you had two huge roles this tournament. One playing for the Loveland Phoenix on our team, and the other was coordinating the whole thing. So, and I had a dual role running the stream as well, so I certainly sympathize with you. It was kind of like two very important but different tasks going on the whole time, which was pretty stressful for me. And I have to imagine that you had a similar experience.
It was stressful for sure. There was a lot that went on that I wish would have gone differently. I feel we handled everything as best as we could, but there are some things that I wish had gone a little bit differently, specifically for the enjoyment of the community. But
for sure. And like I said, I plan to talk about that another time with either you or some other people. But let's talk about the journey of SgtTucker, the player, and my journey and our team's journey, Loveland Phoenix. So we knew that we were going to host. We put together our A team, and it kind of mirrored. The team building process kind of mirrored what happened in West Coast in 2018, where that was one of the only other times we built a full A team for a tournament. And we knew that you were going to be a cornerstone piece of this team as one of our resupply. Mm-hmm. We knew that in 2018 as well. That's the role you've practiced on since the beginning, though you can definitely do other things as well. We had planned that generally Josiah was going to be the heavy, and I ended up playing it through round play. But so together we talked about it, and we were like, okay, as far as synergy goes for the defense, heavy ammo medic, who do we want as a resupply? And Josiah immediately said Joe. Are you surprised at that response, or what do you think of that?
I'm not surprised. At the time, like you said, we put together a couple of lineups, and for 9 years now, basically all I've played in the tournaments is resupply. So it's kind of reached a point where I would hope that I am, a proficient resupply in my own arena. And so it wasn't too surprising. And, the two people I have the most practice with, obviously being the two of you, we've played together for, almost 8 years at this point. So I wasn't too surprised with the way that things shook out initially. So
how would you feel if we had just said Jarrett?
I probably would have said that you guys were trolling, but I would have just shook my head and said, okay.
I am trolling, for sure.
Yeah. I love that kid. Not a resupply player. Not at the level it was needed to be what we needed.
All right, so you beat out the squirrely scout Jarrett for resupply, and originally we were like, okay, who's Joe's partner gonna be? And the choice was obvious. You have a pretty talented brother that we've been keeping an eye on.
Yes. So we grabbed so the initial team, because we were always going to roster 7 because we knew John's kid was going to be born a few months before. So we were unsure what John's availability to us was going to be, because he wanted to be available for Emily in case, she was getting stressed with the kid and all of that stuff. And so we always kind of planned initially for the 7. Um, and so if I recall, our initial 7 was me, you, Bromley, Jarrett, Josiah, John Calkins, and then James was going to be our 7. We didn't even have Troy at the time because he wasn't planning necessarily on participating.
Right, right.
Yeah, and so we practiced that for a little while, and it was going really well. James played ammo for me for a while. Excuse me. And things kind of started to, it felt like, shake up. Anthony very graciously dropped before we set the B team up, dropped to be a merc, so that way the kids could get a little bit more practice specifically together, which took our amount of players who were looking to play down from 8 to 7, which made it substantially easier because that meant we only had to really think of one person we would cut. But then in that process, James decided that it would actually be best if he played for the B team due to a lot of stuff. I know he had some conversations with you and Josiah that I was not fully privy to about stress with life and school, because he was about to graduate from high school, and so there was a lot going on. And so James dropped, and we picked up Troy, was my remembrance of the timeline.
Yeah, definitely. And we were all pretty sad to lose James. We were so excited to, I mean, it was a competition too. Like, we had done tryouts for a long time, probably like, what, 4 or 5 months before we finalized everything. And it wasn't just James. I mean, Azra was definitely heavily considered, and her name deserves to be mentioned. And I think there were a few others as well. But ultimately we decided to go...
Initially... go ahead.
Yeah, initially she was on our A team, the first 2 iterations of the A team, and part of this is mainly because we were like, yeah, it's nothing on her. This is a synergy thing that when we kind of rebuilt it from the ground up, you were that first cog that went in there, and James certainly was going to be the best choice out of every other player to be your partner. And I'm gonna
when James did drop, he offered to give me that chance, so
I'm gonna out James a little bit. There were multiple reasons, but one of the main he dropped, I really respect him for this, is just that, you know, we weren't James's team, we weren't James's generation. James hadn't worked along with us this whole time to get to here, and James wanted to prove himself, just you know, playing with their friends. You know, James is part of the Three Musketeers with Sammy and Judah, and there were a bunch of other really talented players, and let me tell you, James going to B team was a massive boost for them. I mean, he pretty much turned into a leader on that team.
Yeah, because I remember, actually, I mean, if we really want to get technical with it, when we first found out we were going to be hosting, the A and B teams looked drastically different.
Oh, drastically.
I wasn't even on the initial A team.
No, you were.
Partially because of my own frustration with Slade at the time. What ended up happening was the A team, if I remember it, that one was instead of me, it was you, Sammy, Josiah, I believe it was Jarrett, John Calkins, and then Slade and Sammy were on the initial iteration, just to show like how heavily she was considered for it as well. And it was going to be myself, Anthony, James, and Judah pulling up the B team, likely with Ben, Raiden, GL, and one more. So we had a lot of things to kind of suddenly start figuring out very quickly. And we weren't sure what was going to shake up, and it kind of shook up, I think, a little more than even we anticipated, because there was the drama with Slade where he stopped coming, and then the team kind of fell apart, and Josiah gave the reins to you to build, if I recall. And that was when I think we practiced with both Sammy and James, and we were torn on which one we do take, because both of them performed just so admirably. that we didn't really know which one we would rather have.
We also got to throw John Simply Okay and Brahmatized into the conversation because we practiced with both of them as well, and it ultimately came down partially to synergy, just that all of us have been playing together and practicing for the last few years. And I want to get into like how we practiced, right? So we didn't know if Simply Okay was going to be able to play with us because he was having a child, which we all agreed was more important than our silly laser tag tournament. We're like, yeah, okay, well,
Yeah, absolutely.
we're gonna keep you on the roster, and you just let us know. But most of the practicing that you ended up doing was with Brahmatized as your ammo or as your medic, right?
Yes. Because we initially thought we would only have John for like one, maybe two of the 4 days. Um, Initially it was also five, but that's a different conversation. We weren't sure we were going to have him for probably most of the tournament, and so we were practicing as if he was not available to us. And so what we ended up doing was we had myself and Brahmatized swapping on resupplies, and we discovered that based off of which combo we had was a drastically different style of resupply in essence.
Right.
Bromley was a much more hide and go seeky medic than I was, whereas Bromley was also a little bit more, excuse me,
No worries.
a little more willing to do those trades as an ammo, and so it created these interesting dynamics for our team that we were starting to kind of build around, especially while we were also building that B team, because a lot of our practice was, as I'm sure people can guess, against them, which we didn't even know who we were going to have at the time. And so a lot of it, I'm sure, from the kids' perspective, felt like just getting stomped. But a lot of it was, hey, this worked. Hey, this didn't work. Why did this not work? What are we doing differently? How do we, swap these things around? What do we change? Um, and there was a lot of talk for a while, even of, we I remember this is a bit later, sitting down with Luke, and there were iterations where everyone played almost everything except for myself and Brahmatized, who only played Resupply or Scouts. But if I remember, you had like 10 or 12 different lineups laid out. Um, and it was based off of a lot of different things and a lot of synergies and statistics, and so we started trying some of those out to see how it would work. And I think we eventually settled that it was Bromley and I would be the best resupplies together. And we had a fun little twist right at the end. John realized that he would be able to spend much more time at the tournament. So I think 2 weeks it was before the tournament began, I pitched the idea to Josiah, why don't we let Bromley go play scout? Because he's an insanely effective scout, especially when it comes down to hunting enemies on the first floor. And so is John. But we tried out the John and me resupply, and it just felt way smoother suddenly. We were able to act a lot more independently of one another, and it was something we kind of last minute picked up.
Yeah, it is really funny because like I don't know what was that, like a month before the tournament, John began playing a bunch more resupply. It was a combination of two things. One, you and John had a really natural synergy. You and Bromley worked really hard to build something, and yeah, it would have worked too. But not only that, you got to go look at some of the scout games that Bromley was putting up right before the tournament. He had begun to develop this insanely good ability to hunt on the first floor. He does this thing where he like sprints around the corner and pre-fires at just the right moment. Like the dude is a bloodhound when he's hunting people. And he was getting high hit diffs. Lots of medic hits was kind of his calling card. So having Bromley as a scout option was it added a certain flavor to our team where one of our scouts was going to be highly aggressive pushing up from the back, and if we pushed the enemy team downstairs, Bromley could often handle the attacking all on his own for a minute or two while the rest of the team got resupplied.
No, that was honestly the beauty of both Bromley and Jarrett as scouts in that regard. was we could send them out, and it was as if we had sent out a commander with how much pressure they would put out. They would come back each with like 3 or 4 medikits all of a sudden. And so it was creating this really just kind of aggressive killer comp that was able to help close out games a little bit faster, rather than allowing teams to potentially even recover.
So it's funny because like we had practiced all this stuff and a lot of it ended up just getting completely chopped for the tournament. But I want to ask you, like this is playbook kind of stuff. We were theorizing about if you and Brahmi were the resupplies, you two being able to swap positions throughout the tournament. When you were practicing, what was your mentality? What were you trying to build? And what were you hoping to accomplish in the tournament with what we were practicing?
Honestly, I just wanted us to be able to work. So the big reason why Strickva was the one initially who got picked was we could work independently of one another without requiring a ton of the other. We were able to keep track of one another a lot better. We were able to pick one another out of crowds a lot better. It's the sibling buff,
Sibling buff, it's
and
real.
So what I was just hoping to get to, what I was just hoping to get to was just the ability to, whoever my other resupply was, be able to effectively, work without having to hold one another's hands, to be able to work independently of one another towards the goal, to not have to to be able to understand that if I say something, John will follow, and if John says something, I will follow, right? Just kind of building that trust and understanding between one another. One night we spent, so this is just a small example because, oh my gosh, I think before the tournament, you, me and Josiah were spending probably about 8 hours minimum together, just because we were trying to get everything set up, and most of that wasn't even a tag, which was the crazy part. A lot of that was conversations at In-N-Out or at Applebee's,
right,
and talking about what players are we looking to do what, and what teams do we think are going to be issues, and what do we need to be ready for, and we had a whole talk about resets because we were really concerned specifically with players who liked to try and do what we call board flips, coming after the resupplies, and could we keep them out long enough to allow our team in essence to take advantage of it. And so we spent probably, goodness, I think it was one night we spent about 2 hours of just games practicing resets against one another. Both Azra and the Rat against you and me and
that's right. We only did the defenses, right?
Bradley. Yeah, we did. We had the other players in there, and they practiced in the center, but it was a much slower practice, where we discussed a lot more positioning and movements and things like that. Whereas Bradley and you just practiced flipping the board, and the resupplies practiced resetting. So that was an entire night of our of dedication.
That was a
basically.
brilliant idea.
So
yeah,
it paid off. There's a particular clip that I have gone back to that I enjoy.
Oh yeah.
Where
which one?
Caleb Slaughtermelon comes in and so Snuffles tries to come in to get us and gets down by Josiah, and then Slaughtermelon is right behind him, gets a hit off and downs Josiah as Josiah downs him, and you can see Caleb on the cameras yell, "Go in, you're up first." And as this happens, John and I at this exact same moment swing out of big box, and you can see Snuffles and Caleb both try to back up because they realize they're about to get just combo reset. And that made me smile because it was something where this was what we practiced. This was what we were potentially getting ready for, was the need to reset not just one but multiple targets together, and go from there. So
My goodness. I want you to send me that clip when you can. Like, to go from my end, kind of backing up into what we were doing in practice. First of all, I knew to put resupply in general into your hands and not try to micromanage you. And I hope I didn't micromanage you too much, because you knew what to do far more than I did with your depth of experience. But playing in the Loveland Arena specifically, the resupply are in danger more often than in just about any other arena. Maybe St. George? I don't know. Can you think of one where the resupply are in more danger?
I think St. George is a little more vicious towards resupplies than ours is, just because it's so much smaller. There's not that second and third floor to get away from them.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of space. So if your team starts crumbling, it can be a couple of lives before either of you truly get away. And that is obviously not good.
Right.
It can be very difficult in St. George to get away from attackers.
So in Loveland,
it's why their elimination speed is so much faster. But
in Loveland, you can't cover up the weaknesses of a medic the way you can in some other arenas, where if your team is winning, they get to spend the whole game just resupplying their teammates. Anybody can do that. But I knew that we needed our resupply to be A tier or S tier, as well as all the other positions. Obviously, if you're going to be the world champion team, you have to be stacked at all positions, but in Loveland it matters more than in other arenas. And the finals game is exactly why. I mean, you and John having that synergy, I can't think of another resupply combo that I've witnessed that has been able to reset people as smoothly as you two could. And I'm sure there are some people out there shouting for certain combos. I don't know. What do I know? What do you got, Joe? Because I'm going to keep singing your praises.
No,
am I missing anybody, or is it right to call you the best resupply duo in the world?
That's not true. That's an ambitious statement. I think John and I did really, really well. There are definitely some games, especially on days 1 and 2, where we were figuring it out still. Because like I said, we only got those 2 weeks of like, here's our synergy test. Where John and I would hit one another to hit the same target. It specifically happens again in the first game we play against Cedar. I think it's Caleb runs over. Both of us put one in from opposite sides of one another. John's in Fortress, I'm in Chamber. And then John puts me down as I put John down. And so it leads to me basically frantically sprinting to get away from Caleb. So that way I don't get killed, but also to still be available to assist if need be. And it caused some interesting moments where we did have lapses. We had to have that conversation out of game where it was like, hey, when we're resetting, who's got priority on this? What are we doing with it? In which scenario is it time for Joe to run? There was a lot of, to John's credit, a lot of me telling John, give me a shield, I'm running. To which John was very quick about a lot of them. Getting me shields so I could get across. There's even a clip, I think, for a moment where Steve-O makes a comment about me moving across in one of the games. Because just trying to get away from attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would say we're one of the best resupplies in even the US, honestly. I think at home it's going to be hard to beat John and I's synergy in that regard. But I have definitely seen a lot of strong resupply combinations, so I would not consider it.
I'm unabashedly biased. I will confidently say I think you are the best resupply duo I've ever witnessed on video camera footage. And you're the best resupply duo I've ever seen play in Loveland. And all the other people, you're not going to be remembered as well as these two because of the video footage thing. Sorry. That's okay. I'm okay.
You do a little bit of shit.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to get so much hate. Anyway, who cares about the hyperbolic statements? The point is, you watch the video footage, and yes, you two were able to shield, board flip, double tap 3 hits and keep them down for long periods of time. And particularly in the final game, I think you see it really play out, because that was one of Slaughtermelon's big kind of game-breaking moves. He would just run into the enemy resupply and stand there until they finally broke and weren't able to reset him anymore, and then he would take over top floor. You saw him do that to Loveland B in the finals game against them. I mean, it seemed like Azra reset him like 3 or 4 different times, and he just stood there literally like hands on his hip, waiting for waiting for them to mess it up, and then he broke their team. And eventually it happened. But I gotta find this stat. I'm looking at the very final game, and this is a combo of you and Simply Okay, but Simply Okay. Here's all the people he shot in the finals game. Chaser shot him twice, Metalface once, Snuffles twice, Thunder once, Slaughtermelon 19 times. You just watch the video, and he reset him over and over and over and over and over again, and you got him 10 times that game.
Yeah.
So that's 29 shots into the commander, just because you two would not let him get away with that. That probably changed the whole outcome of the game for us.
That was also something like I said, we had discussed, where by that point especially we had it kind of down to a science, where we would double tap them together, John would hit me, and then I would leave, so that way we could get I could get back to safety, and we could get going on whatever the next move would be. And so it would be something where, because what he's looking for usually are kind of just getting medic hits and getting more damage onto the medic. And so if we made the medic unavailable, it made his life substantially harder. So
yeah, definitely. So all that to say is, when it came down to finals, like, maybe if you two had let Caleb break you and you gave up top floor, not saying we couldn't have still won and come back from that, but it pretty much nullified their entire offensive strategy. And because they invested so many resources into the offensive front trying to break you, and you were able to ward them off, their back line was so punished for that it was 2 pretty resounding victories in the finals. And I honestly give the most credit to you and John for that. The rest of us had not easy jobs, but pretty straightforward jobs, because you two were able to hold yourselves.
And I think it also comes from a combination, especially in that last game, where we kind of predicted what Caleb would do. To talk about that last game in particular, we had discussed before the last game of round play. We had mentioned, Caleb loves to rush third floor when he's on red side, and have Snuffles be on second as the heavy. And so we just need to kind of be ready for that and be able to handle that. And so we were, we started red side against them, and it went really, really well. And I remember we were talking about green side, and me, you, and Josiah were talking, and we were like, hey, he's going to rush. Like, he's going to try it. He's going to fall back on this. And if we don't, this is going to be the, does it work or does it not?
Well, we pretty much sacrificed you, Joe.
Looked at each other and went,
we were like, you know what? We're going to put Joe and John up there, and Caleb's going to try to break them. Yeah. And because we're competent enough, our resupply are competent enough, they're just going to reset them. It'll work. And you did.
And so what you guys did instead was you rushed across third together. So both of you sprinted up. You rounded the corner, traded with Caleb, and Josiah went in behind you to get the resupply. And immediately just all momentum was gone, because Snuffles didn't have targets to hit the way that he should have on second floor. And so since we had Jarrett on the first floor already pinging away, when they were flushed down to the first floor, it only compounded the issue further, because they couldn't set back up, because Jarrett was hitting them, and you guys had, again, it came down to knowing the players more than it came down to any kind of real reactions, honestly. Because, like, yes, we did a lot of resetting. I think we put Caleb down 3 times in a row in those 60 seconds while Josiah was flushing them all. which gave us enough time to then get me over to the other side and hide when Snuffles came by, and so it just kind of cut the ankles out, as it were.
Yeah, it absolutely did. So it's really cool hearing, how you chose to practice and the techniques that you and John knew to do during the tournament. From the three hit perspective, which I played 3-hit the whole time, it allowed us to use creativity in our game. We didn't have to babysit you the whole time. We knew that if we wanted to take a risk, if I wanted to go push and basically leave you to die, that you weren't going to die. Because 2 1-hits versus a downed 3-hit should generally be able to handle it if they know what they're doing, and you guys always knew what you were doing. So, I don't know. Anything you want to talk about just like generally during the tournament? Maybe we could switch up the order a little bit. While we're on the tournament, we could talk about some of the teams if you want. But, playing every team was a slightly different experience. They all brought different challenges to the table that we had to overcome.
Yeah. So we talked for hours and hours about teams, what we thought comps were going to be, what we thought the lineups were going to look like, goodness, what was going on with, who is going to need to be what. Do we swap positions for certain games? And what are we going to do? Because initially we had discussed maybe we don't show Josiah heavy until the very end, and we kind of, as we've kind of openly discussed, get them more used to Luke heavy, and then when Josiah plays, it's the exact opposite play style, and it kind of throws people off. Was the whole idea, and so there was hours on hours of conversations that went into it, and I know you in particular put a lot of work into it to set up the graphics and other setups to make sure that everything was ready for us to be able to kind of have these conversations. I remember on the 4th of July, one of the last days we were going to get, we went over to Bromatized's house, and we had an entire PowerPoint discussion about
yes, there were many PowerPoints.
What we were going to do. Yes, about what we were going to do and why were we going to do it and what was going on, and what we were looking for from certain teams, and why. It was interesting to see what played out like we expected, who played in ways that we expected. And to a bigger point, we even discussed people's play styles, like what to expect, what to be worried about, who to keep eyes on during certain portions of the game. There was, I don't think I can quite explain in enough time in this podcast how much prep work really went into it on the conversational side as well.
Yeah, if I could add something,
because we talked about what's go ahead.
No, yeah, so we had all these different things that we were wondering about that other teams are going to bring to the table. Something that we did do, and I'm curious what you ultimately thought of this. I've been known to do this when I've played heavy. We would make plans essentially where if our heavy is standing in X location, our resupply are going to default to Y location. Or when we have top floor, here's the default locations. When we're second, here's the default locations. Setting up a lot of structure on the defensive side. I've always considered the defense something that you could structure out, and offense something that's always inherently more creative and in the moment. Do you remember those charts? Because we had lots of charts for different stages of the game, and there was a lot of coordination that went into it.
Yeah, I remember having a long chat about we were overcomplicating it too much. Because initially we had, goodness, I think 8 or 10 different layouts that we were setting up that we wanted to have for positional. We had, I think, 6 just for the downstairs defense alone, in terms of where we would stand and we would move if this happens, if this
downstairs
happens.
Was a problem.
We kind of had plans within plans. Upstairs was a lot of, okay, just spread out once we have the upstairs, and don't give them free space. Once they come back upstairs, hit them really hard again.
Well, a
and
big
make
thing
them
that
go
we had to
downstairs.
figure out was where do we get resupplied from? Because we were taking way too long getting everybody to their spots to get resupplied, and you two were trying to run all across third and accommodate everybody. And eventually we were like, no, you go to Joe. Everyone goes to Joe. Stop making Joe run around the map looking for you.
Yeah, it
That
became a
worked
game
better.
of, if you're not with me, you're not getting doubles. And if you are in the resupply, you're getting doubles. I remember one of the big things that we discussed was a nasty habit that a lot of players pick up from, members night and stuff like that, is they come back and, they take that deep breath, they slump their shoulders and they put their head down. They've just gotten back from attacking, into, say, a Jarrett heavy, and they've been running around trying to outposition him and get into the resupply. And so it was just a lot of nasty habits that we were also trying to kick in that regard, where it's like, hey, when we're getting doubles, we're also watching ramps. When we're getting these, we are making sure, that we're taking care of these things. Here's where we should stand. Here's a realistic expectation of resupplying. Here's, what we would like to happen, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, kind of thing, right? And we decided initially that we were going to try to have both the resupplies stay together as much as possible to make doubling as effective as possible.
Yes, that's right.
And then we decided that that was not a good idea. We decided that we should spread out once we could.
When you're not doubling people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Or
yes.
did we have people stand in the middle of you?
Yeah. So what we would do, there were a couple different ones depending on who it was. If it was you, what you would do is you would stand in the center wall and you would just watch second floor. And one of us would be watching red ramp, turn around every 6 seconds, double you, turn back. Right. And then we would, in theory, have the entire arena. When it was the scouts, so Josiah, when we were playing certain matchups, Jarrett, Bromley, they would take one side and the resupply would head to the other. Usually they would take whatever side John was, because that was what we were declaring to be weak side. Because I was always supposed to be on the same side that you were as the heavy. So whatever side basically we had the most control of, John would run over to, and then they would get doubles on what was the weak side, and they would be, in essence, our alarm. If someone started running up the rampway, they would get a double, run down the ramp, and make a trail, and that gives us 8 seconds to reorganize our defense, in essence. So
what's cool about a lot of this is that
it's even expressed in one of the Utah games.
What's cool about this is we often would forget these specifics in the middle of the game, but a lot of it was just common sense or muscle memory to most of us on our team. That even if we totally messed up the positioning, you guys would just figure it out and creatively coordinate because you knew the arena well enough. There was a lot of structure.
Yeah, and
oh, go ahead.
That was the big thing, was also we just kind of knew where to stand and what to do, and so it gave us a lot more of this not being so afraid of stuff, where we could kind of power through a lot more problems, because we were so ready to we were already basically accepting that the problems would exist, right? And so it gave us a lot more of that comfort where it was like, oh, hey, we don't need to be afraid of this. So,
yeah. So there was so much structure that we tried to put in place. There was a lot of creativity that was obviously involved in a chaotic game like SM5. Were there any standout moments that you're really proud of or that you reflect on and think that was some of my best work as a resupply?
So there's a particular moment where I was talking about this with Odin's Fist actually the other day. We were playing a game against them, and I know you recall this game because I have ridiculed you for it a little bit.
Yes.
Where Odin's Fist is actively watching you getting doubles and starting to like you can see them pat their thigh for a few seconds as if they're literally timing you. And sure enough, the third time you come out to get a double, you run out, you get your or you've gotten the double, and Aiden is already halfway across to get over, and shoves us downstairs. We recover really well, but something interesting occurs where we're trying to get this full recovery going, and as this happens, we are resupplying. You can see us in the pencil where we're doubling, getting everything all set up. We're trying to get everything prepared, and it's myself, Simply Okay, Loki, and Brahmatized are there, as you and Fear Turkey are just kind of holding the line upstairs. And I distinctly remember being like, "Hey guys, we gotta go back upstairs. We're taking too long to be down here. You guys all get one more double, and then we gotta go." And unbeknownst to me, that was actually an incredible decision, because what happens is you've been holding Fortress and Josiah has been holding Closet. As everyone begins to make this conga line upstairs, both you and Josiah, without knowing that we're coming up, push. You turn off Odin, and then I think Josiah turns off Autumn or Minette. And suddenly here come, 4 more guns all of a sudden, because everybody is now upstairs. And as this happens, I go over to what I know you're aware as one of my favorite spots. I go sit beneath Red Side, because what I'm expecting to happen is I'm expecting us to get up there and to call that Red Side's clear, because that's where I've been hearing you fight from. And so as that happens, Aiden's trying to let everyone into Fortress, and I end up triple tapping Aiden in the back as well, before John calls out that
you really
Green
got
Side's
Aiden
clear.
from first? I gotta go rewatch this one. Well done.
It's at 9:34 on day 2.
Ooh, okay. I'm going.
Yeah. So it was definitely the right call at the time. It's one of those ones that there's no way that I can know that call is going to go that well. That was that little bit of luck and chaos that comes with Space Marines for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think hey, we need to get upstairs was the correct decision, because it allowed us to just completely take back momentum. John and I got upstairs right as Josiah was going to start needing doubles. You were still sitting pretty because you had gotten both of our boosts, and all of a sudden we were kind of back in control again. So it was definitely one of my prouder moments as a shot call for sure.
Yeah, well, it was well executed whole time. Okay, there goes Odin. Odin's in the fortress with Anthony and the whole team now. Oh, I see it. Aiden was just leaning way over because there were 5 people running right past them in the fortress.
Yep.
Well done.
Trying to get back, basically.
I love how you just know the timestamp. That was good.
Yeah, I was literally looking at it as we were discussing. Because you mentioned telling you where the timestamps were. So it was.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely well done. I also found the cedar one. It's at 9:49 on day 4. Is what it was.
Oh yeah, 9:49.
Those are definitely 2 of my prouder moments. Where you get to kind of see, I'm trying my best to make sure we've got as much good going on as possible.
So, Joe, you had a moment after we won the tournament. You just kind of like went to your knees and you were up there on the red ramp for a little bit. What I don't know, what was that like for you winning?
Honestly, I cried for a few seconds, because that was in essence 10 years of experience where I was like, oh, this is actually Like I've kind of proven that I can do this, you know. And it was very, very validating, that I'm sure all of us as tag players have gotten the, oh, you play laser tag competitively, ridicule.
Yeah.
Um, so um, it definitely was very validating to feel like, wow, okay, this has been, worth my time. This has been worth something that's worth practicing. Um, and so it was kind of just a feeling of relief. I do wish that I had gotten my initial wish with it, where I had gotten to introduce Strickva to the tournament scene with this as well, um, and win alongside my little brother for his first tournament. But also, it's still just a good feeling being able to bring it home and prove that, as a site, we've grown into these powerhouse players that can handle this. Um, so
Yeah, man.
it was
At least
a
in
lot
our
of validation,
arena,
honestly.
at least in our own arena, we were a powerhouse for sure. Yeah, I hear you. Playing with Strickva means a lot to you, and you've done so much to mentor him and be a good older brother. Strickva was definitely introduced to the tournament scene, if it's any consolation. Their name is well known now.
I'm still insanely proud of all of the B team players for their performance. There was, admittedly, we had a lot of concerns going into the tournament, because the last week of practice, what we were going to do was we were going to do a lock-in to basically let them practice out as much as they wanted, and do like a really, really long conversation. And we didn't get to do a lot of that conversation because of stress levels. And so we started getting, really worried, where it's, hey, are they going to be able to handle this? Because we know that they're good enough. It's just, can they mentally and emotionally handle what's going to happen? Right. And so there was definitely a moment of, oh no, this could be bad, that that was quelled very quickly, by the kids doing just absolutely wonderfully, working together, figuring it out. They had a really rough first match with Cedar, but I think that second match and third match really kind of helped them understand what we had been saying this whole time, which was, hey, it's not just going to be a slaughter every single game, right? It's there are games you guys are going to put up really good fights, and don't get too discouraged by that, because you will be able to to make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm very proud of all of the kids.
Yeah, it was an emotional tournament. It was an emotional day for all of us, especially in finals. I sympathize with you. I was definitely overjoyed. It was a weird feeling when we won, and I cried before the tournament that day. I had a moment just in the car. I just had to pull over, and I totally broke down, because it felt like it was like a weird combination of, it was daunting, I think. It was daunting to have been playing for the last 10 years together alongside you guys, all walking into this, and you didn't know if you were going to walk out of it with your efforts validated or not. Like, we could have come out of this tournament in second place, and that thought had been freaking me out for the last year and a half, really.
Yeah,
there's a lot of pressure.
No, we actively discussed that. We believed that we could definitely win, but I think the big sentiment we had was, don't count your chickens till they hatch.
Yeah.
Until we lift the trophy, it's not over, right? We both, me, you, Josiah, everyone, we're talking about, we can't, even with their two rookies, we can't look down on Cedar City.
No.
Even with what we perceive to be things that we can exploit in inner peace, this will not be easy. We will have to fight for every inch of the game. And so it was I really remember the final game against Cedar, the first game we won. Josiah actively sitting in the arena or in the vesting chamber going,
Yep.
nobody congratulate me. It's not over. Don't pat yourselves on the back yet. We are not done.
That's
Right.
right.
And so because we were very serious about making sure that we did not mess this up. Right.
Yeah.
Because it just would take one mistake and that would be that. Right. And
Yeah.
so
Even just talking about it's kind of bringing me back. And if I may, I haven't opened up about this yet to really anyone, like why I haven't posted a video for 5 months after saying I had tons of content I wanted to make, and obviously after winning, like you think I'd be really happy, but the truth is like it was a really hard week for me. I had to go to some really dark places to play at the level I did. I wasn't playing like a guy playing a game. I was playing like a guy who, if I lost, there would have been like real world dire consequences. Like that's what it took for me. And I knew that it wasn't just for me, it was for you and for our team, right? Like you had been working really hard for this. Josiah had been working really hard for this. Everyone had. Like there was so much on the line. The pressure was overwhelming constantly throughout the week.
I think I had a bit of a different one where it was at this point, when I began the week, it almost felt less stressful up until that final game. Not because like I wasn't worried or I didn't care, but because I was like, we've done everything we can, right? We've done every talk we can do. We've squeezed every ounce of conversation we can into this. We have done every minute of practice of every different lineup of everything. So at this point, it comes down to us. Can we play or not? And there were definitely some moments of frustration. You and I got after each other once in the middle of the tournament. I was very mad about you in the series, or very mad at you in both the Syracuse and the LAPD games because I was getting flustered. But I mean, we all kind of got on one another at one point or another. But it was something where, with all of that talking, we had also gotten to a way where even if we were getting on each other, it wasn't personal. It was more, hey, I need you like doing this. We need this from you. Because I remember after the California game that we lost, I do remember going up to you and being like, we have talked about this. You cannot give up your side like that. And you and I had a talk about that one where you were just like, yeah, I thought I could get kills faster. And then it kind of just fell apart. And we were talking about it. We were like, we're getting too ahead of ourselves. We got to keep doing the basics. Right. And I think that was the other nice thing was we were also there, not just to, win, but to keep each other in check as well. There was, I had a talk with Josiah that Josiah was able to calm me down. I had a talk with you where I was able to get, you out of a kind of nastier headspace. I think you and Josiah had a conversation. I remember talking with John about after a game. I remember us talking with Jared after one of the games. Like I think aside from Troy, who is a rock emotionally, we all kind of had those moments where we needed to have kind of our heads pulled out of our ass, as it were. So
yeah, I agree. Everyone really brought the best of themselves out for the tournament, and we're there for each other. Now, this moment you're talking about, Joe, there were definitely some moments where I messed up, and we talked about it, and I, played better going forward. Are you talking about the game against Syracuse where I went downstairs and left you alone with Evil?
Yeah, when it was me and Bromley resupplies, and you come back upstairs because I'm screaming about it.
Yeah.
And I remember you even came over to me and you were like, I thought he left. And I was just like, no,
okay,
he hasn't gone anywhere. And you were just like, oh, my bad.
I do just want to say, now that it's all over, do you remember how we discussed intentionally teaching people bad habits?
No, I do. And I remember that was the conversation we had afterwards where you were like, we're trying to get people to send their heavies downstairs because we actively think it's a mistake we can exploit. So in the moment, I was very, very unenthused about it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But
In the
afterwards,
game, and I was
you and
genuinely
Josiah had
sorry.
a conversation about it afterwards.
And I was
Yeah.
genuinely sorry because I
And
was
so
like,
it
well,
wasn't anything like I held
I
against.
didn't mean to get you killed. I just, but I was playing very aggressive and attacking downstairs all week on purpose because, yeah, I mean, it's debatable.
also,
It's a risk reward thing, but
Yeah, it was also I had watched Bromley reset evil because I was standing out in the open probably 3 or 4 times as a medic, and so he finally was like, "Enough of this," and ran over to me, and I'm like, "My turn, give me guns." And every time evil would run over to me, all of you would vanish, and I would just be like, "Guys." And so that was where my frustration had started to build. Was I had watched, I think Bromley hit evil like 14, 15 times that game as a medic, just getting those resets. And I think I got evil like 8.
I'm telling you, man,
it was
this
all
is...
me just trying to deal with evil. And so
I try to tell everyone, watch out for evil. Don't sleep on him. Yeah, I wish he had played. I wish he had played more 3-hit in that tournament because he had some really creative moves.
No, for sure he did. Honestly, I think there is not a single person in this tournament I would look at and say you performed poorly. I think everybody grew very well. You could see kind of different gameplay from day 1 to day four, and different teams figuring out different plans and synergies and how they would do things. So I was very impressed with everybody who came out. Honestly, it was, even we've kind of talked about it as well. We couldn't look down on the Motor City Mutts who ended up taking 8th, or the St. George Sunbeams who ended up taking 7th. We still had to take them seriously because of the talent on their teams, and so it was. Yeah, I enjoyed the tournament a lot. So.
Yeah, for sure. Should we talk about some of the teams? You mentioned you had some thoughts.
Sure. So I mean, it also bears noting. I think the Motor City Mutts in particular deserve a lot of credit for their play. They had a lot of stuff kind of against them from the get-go. They had not played with each other in this capacity in the arena that they needed to. They picked up Lizzie Lizard, who was brand new to the game. I think she had 5 games of Space Marines at that point. They picked up Lucas, who went by initially Rage Itself and changed to Blackout before the tournament, and Vanessa, who goes by Phantom. And so Rhea, in my opinion, deserves a lot of kudos for running that team, because it was not easy trying to figure out what lineup she should run and what they needed to do. And I'm sure she had a lot of people who were whispering in her ear saying, do this, do that, and I think they definitely put on a very good showing. I think they deserve a lot of respect for how well they did. I do have to openly state I was the one thing I was disappointed with was Lucas's behavior during the tournament was pretty bad. He had a lot of issues, but we had worked with him over several months, and it seemed like he was getting substantially better. Even at the last Mega Members Night, where he struggled in several games, it seemed like he had a lot more control over things, and he wasn't having the outbursts that he was having. And
I want to be careful, just because these podcasts are, they can leave a long-term impact on people, because they never go away, and something, something to mention is like Josiah went through this. People would talk about Josiah's behavior at tournaments when he was really young, and the fact that those videos, they hang around, people talk, and even as Josiah was drastically improving, he carried that reputation with him for so long until finally 2023 people were finally like, okay, we've got to stop looking at him that way. And you can see the changes already. This tournament was really not trying to. I just want to mention like it's been heard by him, and he has definitely made drastic improvements at our members' nights already.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. I am hoping that we get to see him again, and he can kind of show that that was, a one-time off thing, and not get saddled with, like you said, the reputation that Josiah had. Time will tell.
Totally, yeah. I have more respect for this team than any of them, even our team. I mean, it's to not win. It takes so much. I'm gonna call it moral courage to keep showing up and trying your best.
And they gave it their all every single game.
They did.
There's not, at least in my mind, there's not a single game I can point to where I'm like, wow, Rhea's just not trying, or wow, Vanessa's just, giving up, or Lizzie's just, walking around with her gun down, or Stu's clearly like there's no game I can point to where I don't think they're giving that their all. And so I think, especially, having that tough time putting that team together, it deserves a lot of commendation for it. So.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So, big respect to them. And I feel like I let them down a little bit because I called them out as my dark horse team. I thought they could do better, and yet during the tournament I was so focused on us and the videos, I never really like stopped to talk to them very much. I wish I had more time to like go and actually work with them, and in a perfect world I wish I could have flown them all out early and gotten like a week with them, because I still think this team could have done so much better with a little bit of extra practice.
Yes. I think they would have been gorgeous with a little bit of extra time to their name.
Gorgeous. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What'd you think about the Sunbeams? I'm just going to go up the list, honestly.
Sure. They did, in my opinion, they did really, really good. I had them slotted a lot lower, mostly just because I was unsure of, again, a lot of rookie talent. Who knows how that's going to go over? Who knows what's going to happen with that? And so I think they performed very, very well. I think they pulled together as a team really well. I think there's a lot to talk about on that team. I think for Vulcan being in the exact same spot Lizzie was in, almost no games of Space Marines. I think even worse still, Vulcan only had about 20 games of laser tag total when he initially competed. So he had pretty much, he had almost no experience. He had no way to really build that synergy and that ability up. And so I think, Josiah and I were talking about this a couple of nights ago. I have rewatched a lot of the games. You can see every single game Vulcan hustles. Vulcan's giving it his all, but that goes for all of them. Amethyst is constantly running around trying to move. You can see Sadie is, busting her butt trying to make sure that she's doing as much as she can for her team. Rockwood's moving around constantly. Marcus is trying to get a bunch of hits out for his team. And so you get to see a lot of determination is what I would say from that team, where, you get to you get to kind of watch them show their grit. Right. They were the other team that was kind of predicted to come in and just not lose outright, but have a really, really hard team again, because they're not really able to practice together. They're all pretty much new except for Sadie and Rockwood, as well as Marcus. But then you have Marcus is a European, so they don't have a lot of practice with him in that regard, between all of the Utah members. And then they picked up the Grace, and while I think she is a good player, again, no real practice with her either, and so it kind of made for this, just like I was saying with the mutts. Who's going to go where? What are we going to do with this? What are we going to do? And so
I think this team really benefited from good coaching, good mentorship. They were projected to come in last by everyone on our podcast, at least, and they almost felt like they were a tier lower than the Motor City Mutts due to the lack of experience that they had. I mean, Vulcan and I, Mathis, were like completely new to the whole game. Now, so was Lizzie Lizard, but we knew Lizzie Lizard was going to be a total baller. And I was just really impressed at how seriously they all took it, how they played their roles well, and they were ultimately like outperforming expectations across the board. Even though they, again, it's hard to say that when they only got the 2 wins against the Motor City Mutts, but you also got to look at how close they were making some of the games. They nearly had one on Syracuse later in the tournament.
yeah, again, I don't think you can really discount how the team was doing. Sadie was doing really well as a heavy. Marcus was doing really well. In the commander role, Rockwood and Grack were doing a good job as scouts backing them up. And, towards the end of it, in the beginning, you could definitely see what you would expect of new players with Vulcan and Amethyst floundering, not sure where to go, not sure where to stand. They weren't really missing any doubles, which was awesome to see. But they were struggling with where do I leave? We're being attacked. What's happening? And towards the end of the tournament, you could see them kind of being like, oh, I need to go here and I need to do these things in order to stay as safe as possible. So it was fun to watch that growth as well.
Yeah. So you think Vulcan
Especially
did well
from a
this tournament?
resupply perspective. I definitely think he deserves some credit. He played his heart out, and especially, like I said, with only 20 games of laser tag under your belt, that's hard to overcome, right?
So
it is not, especially international Space Marines is a very high bar to have to meet suddenly right off the bat. So
right. So you're a fan of Vulcan. You're a Vulcan fan.
I don't know that I'd say that. I'd say that he did really well, and that I think I hope that I do see him in more tournaments, at least in the U.S. region. Get a little bit more practice under his belt, see where he goes from there. So
yeah, me too. He was a delightful person to know. Want to talk about Syracuse a bit?
Finger waggling at Beans playing in that cast
Finger
like that.
waggling, yeah, that was dangerous.
Yeah, initially we had a conversation in the captain's meeting, and Rhea brought up, it's sketchy to let Beans play in such a state of injury, and I do agree. It is not something that we can just quickly be like, Beans will be fine. My understanding of the conversation had been Beans was like, oh, I might play like 4 or 5 games, so don't worry about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll figure out how I'm feeling from there. And so he played 1 game, I think, of Resupply on the first day, and he looked at me and he went, nope, not anymore. Like I am not going to play any more games. That was too sketchy.
Really? I didn't know he said that.
My arm up.
Okay.
And so I was very frustrated when I suddenly saw a lot more Beans games getting played on days 3 and 4, where I was like, I've been deceived by a lie.
We all were.
Yeah, yeah. Other than that, I think they all deserve, a ton of credit. They were pretty much exactly as we predicted them when they came out. It was good to see Wookiee again. That was not something we had anticipated, because I believe they were planning to come with Sanch. Maybe, I can't remember exactly who it was, but they had to drop last minute, and then so they were going to be 6, and then Beans got injured, so they needed someone to potentially play, and Wookiee came out of the woodworks and decided to come and play. But it was really awesome to see Cody again. He's played in our arena several times. It was good to see Lenny. He performed really, really well in my opinion as well. But I mean, I can say that about all of them. Evil did wonderful. He was exactly what I remember playing against him being like, and same with Fox.
So this team fell really short of their hopes and their projections. Obviously, Beans getting injured was huge. So there's a lot of commentary to be made. I just want to say, like, you remember our bet about Cody, right?
I do. If I recall, Cody landed exactly on the dot for me to lose the bet.
No, for you to win
which
the bet.
was for me to win the bet.
Because he
Okay. Which
played
was
14 games non-heavy. He played 11 games on heavy.
yes. So the initial one was you when we were discussing who was going to play where. You and I came out with the most disagreements in terms of roster lineups, and most of the others around us landed somewhere with the two of us. More, I think, with you than with me. But I stated that I didn't think I didn't think Cody was going to be playing heavy. I thought it was going to be either Lenny or Evil primarily, playing heavy for them and kind of going that way. It turned into you and I having a very strong disagreement about it because you felt that Cody was an incredible heavy and should get played there. And I was trying to discuss that I didn't think that was the case. Not that he's not a good heavy, but that they needed him to be doing commander rather than heavy. And so we made the bet basically for lunch. If Cody
That's right.
didn't play more than half the games, you would buy me lunch, and if he did, I would buy you lunch.
I bought you lunch, right?
And so
I think I did.
I think you did.
Okay.
If not, I think you did the next day.
All right. Here's where I'm going to absolutely dunk on Syracuse, and you got to be real. If we just go around talking about how great everybody did, then you're not really saying that much, right? Syracuse, I felt. Here's the thing. I made the bet because I fell for what I'll call the fallacy of logical coaching. If I were to be organizing this team, I would have put Cody on heavy the whole tournament, and here's why. I think for this tournament, Cody was their best player. He had actually been coming out to tournaments over the last few years, practicing in the Loveland Arena, and he's a great player in his own right. And the thing is, like, in many arenas, I almost want to like do a funny voice, like you put your best player on commander. Obviously, like it's kind of like a level 1 basic component of the game. Best players go on commander. And obviously, we know the game's far more complicated than that. In the Loveland Arena, you need to have the heavy position secure. I'm not saying your best player, whatever that means, goes on heavy. I just mean you need a very competent heavy to win games in the Loveland Arena. And Cody may have been the most competent commander out of everybody, at least for the first couple days. But I think the team would have done better if they'd put him on heavy the whole time and allowed someone else to evolve into a great commander, because heavy's so much harder to learn in our arena. It's so much more contextual and nuanced, whereas commander can play very much like a scout. You just gotta go get points and then drop your nukes. Like it's not that simple, obviously, but I don't know. I think their team would have done a lot better if Cody had played heavy and allowed the team the stability to figure out the other 5 roles. When their heavy kept getting pushed downstairs, trying with other positions, and they did get pushed down a lot, it made it hard for anybody to really learn the arena.
Yeah.
There's my hot
I think
take.
the big thing I have with them, is they fell into a trap that we're guilty of, which is stop swapping your lineup. Stop changing who's on what roles.
Well, we were allowed to do that. We
because
practiced for months. They just showed up.
No, I mean at other tournaments. When we've gone to away tournaments.
Oh yeah, that's just because we're bad.
Get concerned. Oh, this thing's not working. And I think, to your point, it is very important that your heavy in particular learns the arena. But I think because they kept changing it so much, they were all great players, but no one had that practice and, that kind of understanding of, in essence, the smaller macro decisions that they needed to make. And so that started to harm them, in particular when it started coming down to the elimination games, because they didn't have those, in my opinion, the cutting decisions to get damage done that they needed to get done. So
Right. By the end, they were doing it. They had put Cody on heavy and Bean's commander, and they were at least knocking at the door of the teams above them, the Love B and Cali B, but or LA. That's what they should be called. But yeah,
yeah, no, they did good.
what do you think about LA, by the way?
Well, I have lots to say, but in deference to time, honestly, they performed again exactly how I kind of thought they would. You know, again, there's not players that you can kind of look down on very much there. Anthony is a home arena scout. You know, Disco is always a good performer. Autumn has always done really well in arenas where she can kind of post up and fight. And she doesn't have to move around a ton. You know, Aiden is always a terrific player. And I feel like Connor is also a fantastic player. And so I feel their big shortcoming was they weren't sure what their lineup was actually going to be coming into it. But I think by the end they had kind of figured out what the optimal setup was with Connor Commander and Aiden Heavy, having Disco and Anthony be scouts and Minette and Autumn be resupplies, was working out very well for them. And they were, like you said, with Syracuse, they were pushing a lot of teams, even us. Like I said, Aiden was able to flush us completely downstairs, which from most of the games, at least the games I played, only Inner Peace and Cedar were able to do that as well. All the rest of them, we maintained at least some variation of upstairs control for the game. So,
Yeah, for sure. This team, I think they did a good job of figuring out that lineup and eventually sticking with it, but it did take them a little bit. I mean, they had a lot of really good players who were talented, and they worked together. And I already gave my opinion on another show. Man, I don't know how else to say this, so I'm just gonna say it, and I hope I don't offend anybody. I think this is where we start to see teams get affected by a lack of star power. Like, this team was really trying to knock at those top 4 teams. Aiden was able to break through and make some incredible plays. As you talked about earlier, Aiden came in and pushed our team down. We happened to be the big overpowered home team that tournament, and Aiden's like one highly intelligent, well-timed move created that. I wish I saw more playmakers coming from the other 5. Just more plays. It was like really good, solid performances where you were kind of banking on the other team to make mistakes rather than forcing advantages. I think that's why this team couldn't get much higher than 5th. They were competing with Love B, but Love B has star power, had people just straight up beating other people with their raw talent.
I do think it also comes from a bit of a lack of the arena knowledge. Like, they have played here a couple of times, but it was also, I think their bigger issue was they, rather than star power, they struggled with that mid-game transition, right?
I think so.
Having the effective rotations in order to continue the pressure, right? A lot of games that, you watch Aiden or Connor or Disco even make these, great pushes, and just no one's ready to support them. And so they were I think their big issue was they were a lot more disjointed rather than any kind of like star power. It was they were trying to get a lot more of that synergy set up so that way they could make a lot of these plays. Because when they had the space, Aiden and Disco and Connor would perform exactly the way they would, and Anthony was able to support them a lot, but it was a lot of trying to keep things organized that I think they had ultimate problems with.
I hear you. And star power is pretty controversial anyway. Just because I think high IQ laser tag is played pretty much in the opposite concept, that we're not banking on star power, we are playing as a team. Like, that's good laser tag. But I don't think it accounts for nothing either.
Yes. I mean, to quickly point to a different tournament we had, the West Coast tournament that we did coming right out of COVID, you know, the team Stacked Pancakes, everyone thought they were just going to steamroll everybody because, you know, the players on
Yeah,
there are
that's the
regarded as
example.
some of, you know, the best of the best. And synergy matters a lot, it turns out, not just the star power. And so,
Totally. Yeah, I know you're trying to breeze through these a little bit. Is there a team that you want to make sure you touch on tonight, or any other teams?
um, I feel like we can we've sung enough of Love B's praises, so doing the other two would probably be a good idea.
Yeah,
I have nothing but good things to say about how those kids performed, and they
ditto.
are
They're
all well
perfect.
aware of what my viewpoints on how their tournament
I
went
think
were.
they're perfect for
Um,
where they were at. They did incredible.
mhm. I think they got to break out onto the scene and be like, yes, we're a B team. Yeah, we're all basically really new. No, this is not going to be simple. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of pleasure watching. My surprise was Inner Peace taking third.
Hmm.
I had them projected as second, just because I thought they would be able to get over that hump. And for a lot of that round robin and the games, it did seem like Inner Peace was just going to, you know, keep control of that. And they played, you know, in the first match they played against them, I believe they won both games, or maybe they split it 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes the elimination match where both of them have been knocked into the losers bracket. We knocked Cedar in there first, and then we
So
knocked Inner Peace into it, and then Cedar had to in essence run the gauntlet. They had to beat Loveland A, and then turn around and play Inner Peace,
right.
and then turn around and play us if they won, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had personally expected it to be just like it was before, a very close match. You know, both those teams are insanely talented.
Mm-hmm.
But I had expected for us to see Cedar or Inner Peace again. And so that had admittedly thrown me off a little to see them falter right at the end the way that they did. It was I don't want to use the word disappointing because they had an incredible tournament, right? It was just surprising, I think is the correct word.
It was a, I mean, in the moment, I didn't really care who I was playing. I was too freaked out about just not failing in finals. But looking back, it's pretty cool to see, like, yeah, we did. I love all 6 games that happened between these two teams. And maybe I'm just gonna talk about them both at once. Like,
Sure.
Cedar 6-0, or sorry, Cali 6-0 Cedar in the top bracket of finals. So they kind of came in almost like the favorites. And then when they played in the finals, like, I've watched those games back a couple times, and this is so much, I think, about a matter of the flavor of team that came in. Cedar City, I think, designed a strategy that was meant to defeat the basic meta of Loveland, which California A played perfectly to a T. That's the short of why I think they won in the finals.
Yeah.
Sending Commander to top floor and Heavy to second, if you're just keeping everything very basic on the other side, it's proven to actually be very effective.
It's especially if you can keep, in particular, if your commander can keep the heavy tied up, because that is the big thing. Is your heavy needs to be able to deal with the your heavy on second should be able to deal with the commander and a scout.
Mm-hmm.
So your commander needs to be able to deal with a heavy. So it is not an easy feat to achieve. We in members night have seen many a newer player try this, and many a newer player get bonked on the head because they realize this is not a good idea.
Yes, adults only.
Because yeah, practice members only. It did definitely feel like
Cedar really was just kind of chomping at the bit to prove that they could do it as well. It definitely felt like the way I have described the game is it basically felt like both teams were just throwing haymakers at each other the entire game.
Hmm.
Between both of them, that they were, because I think in the first game, uh, Inner Peace wins. I think they even. I don't remember
No, they
this one in
don't. They don't
particular, but
win.
I think they don't win the first one. Okay.
They don't.
But then they win
If we're
this
talking about finals, they don't win either game.
finals. Yeah, they don't win either game. I thought they 4-2'd. I thought they
No, it was a
won
six
the
and zero
first
in the
one.
finals.
Oh, that's right. They survived at the last second in the first one. Dill, or no, they get eliminated in the first one. Sorry, I've got
No, you're good.
the
I got
YouTube
them.
video up.
Me
And
same.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, they. Oh wow, they got. Okay, I had thought it was very similar to the way it was initially, but yeah, DK gets killed with 6.5 minutes left. Yeah, it was definitely not what I had anticipated. Um, Admittedly, it was what I had hoped was the outcome. I wanted to face Cedar for the final match. Was my personal what I wanted to see.
Hmm.
I wanted to see Cedar against us on the final side because you know, not trying to be mean. I felt we had a better chance to beat Cedar than we did to beat Inner Peace, and so when we lined up the way that we did, I was sad because I also, the competitor in me wanted Inner Peace to come forward because I felt like they would push us. And then we played Cedar instead. So
Well, that's the thing. It's not a. It doesn't look like Cedar pushed us very hard in the finals games, but it's kind of based on the way that they play that happened, because they are so much more about the haymakers. I hear what you're saying, but I disagree that California A played with haymakers. I think they were a very stable, minimizing mistakes kind of team that played very sound fundamentals. Cedar was, I think, more creative. They were willing to take risks, put both 3 hits on the offensive, and try to kill your medic and send you downstairs and end the game in one fell swoop. They did it to Cedar, or sorry, they did it to Cali in just the right time in the finals. When you put them against us, they do try it. They send both 3 hits on the offensive in both games against our team. Our defense was just too good. And because they had both 3 hits forward, their defense really didn't stand a chance, even against just our scouts.
mm-hmm.
I think if we had played Cali A in finals, I do think they may have had a better chance to beat us, just because I think Cedar's strategy kind of banked on people making some more mistakes. I don't know. It's very risky, and if their attack doesn't work, then they kind of leave their backline totally exposed. That's the flaw with Cedar.
Sure. It definitely did feel like Cedar was very high risk, high reward. And to their credit, they are an incredibly talented bunch, even with, Metalface, who is a rookie at this point. I believe Metalface is a rookie, or at the very least, very, very new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Chaser, who is very, very new, and you have Meds, who has been around in the tournament scene for a long, long time, but has not really been able to participate in a tournament yet. You get to kind of see a little bit more of them playing and just how much their knowledge of the game extends here,
Yeah. There's one moment that I think really shows how good Cedar City was in the finals game. If you have the video pulled up, day 4, 9:49:45 is the time frame, and if you even just pause it right there, you see that they are mounting an incredible comeback. These guys aren't playing to last out the game. They're playing for a switch of the tempo, low probability, high reward, actually win the game play here. you know, this, like, we've been ravaging their defense a bit, and they managed to get their entire team, like you can see all 6 players surrounding you and Josiah and John up in the fortress. Like, they've got you completely surrounded. And the only thing that really stops them from shoving you out right here is I happen to drop a nuke at like a really convenient time, but like you can see that they're all trying to push into you right here. I love how coordinated they are. They were not a team that would just like cave. They were always trying to make counterattacks.
This was also another thing where, like I said, this is also the moment where Caleb, Josiah down Snuffles and then gets down by Caleb. You know, you can see Dallin come out to come back, and John and I swing at the same time, and he grabs that half wall to back up. But yes, you know, you've got Thunder, Meds, and Chaser all at the switchback, and you've got Snuffles and Caleb on third floor pressuring us. And I think, you know, that one comes down to especially a lot more of the you know, us really practicing together and like just kind of not panicking under the pressure, as it were.
Totally. Totally.
It was, you know, it's something where there were not a lot of instances of people coming back at really silly, you know, I've got 3 lives or I've got, you know, 2 shots. It was a lot of people coming back at opportune times. And, you know, even as, you know, if you let this video keep playing after Meds has died, you see Caleb try to come in several times. And because, you know, Bromley and Jarrett are also both back getting doubles, Snuffles and Caleb both try to come in. And over about 4 pushes, neither of them hit me because John, me, and sometimes one other, or sometimes me twice, puts 3 in, right? And so I think that also speaks to a little bit more of us. You know, it was, like you said, a very good nuke timing because it gets Meds killed out. But it's also, you know, there's a moment where we send at 9:50:40. You can see me basically tell Bromley, get the heck out. You no longer need things. I need to get other people, you know. Jarrett's here, Josiah's here, we need to get more, right? And Bromley runs, to his credit, he runs across. He leaves like we ask him to, and he eats a missile from Caleb as he runs by to go get that positioning, because of, you know, that trust and understanding that we have built with one another. And so
it was a fine move. Like, we had already killed out the medic. It was better to just go and keep getting positioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I do definitely think it comes down to also a little bit of us, you know, to quote a good movie, don't panic, you know.
Yeah. I think I thought of a great analogy that might really summarize it well, and maybe we can wrap up talking about these teams. Like, playing against Cedar City was like playing poker against somebody who on the first hand goes all in.
Yeah.
I think that's why the games were so lopsided. It was like they went for the big swing, they didn't get it, so they lost. But there's a world where they get 5 medic hits and shove us downstairs, and the game looks very different.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, they are very much a team where, like, if you're playing poker, their first or second hand, they're already being like, hey, I'm gonna go all in now, and it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It definitely felt a lot more volatile is
Definitely
the way that I describe it.
Agreed. So, do you have any more thoughts on any of the teams that you think are worth talking about?
No, other than I'm also very appreciative that everybody stuck it out. I know things were not going perfectly, and I appreciate everybody, you know, doing their best to bear with us as we kind of went through everything. and dealt with a lot of stuff that, you know, between the fire and other things that were a little more out of our control. It was I was glad that there was no one who was being, in essence, rude about it. A lot of people were very understanding, that things were being handled to the best of their capabilities, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate everybody. Well, Joe, maybe as a conclusion, just want to bring us to the present day. It's been 5 months since we played this tournament. Like, how have you processed all of this, and where are you at today?
It took me a few months for it to sink in. Um, Part of it being just like I basically we finished up the tournament, we did the awards dinner, and the next day I was back to work, you know. So there was not a lot of processing time for a lot of this stuff. There was mostly just me being like, "Oh, okay, we've won." And I remember telling one of my coworkers and him being like, "Oh my gosh, congrats!" And I was just like, "Yeah, thank you." Like not that I was downplaying it or anything. Just it I think DK summed it up best when DK and Steve-O summed it up best when I was talking with them, that it just doesn't hit you right away. But I remember I was sitting at work a few months later, and sure enough, you know, I was just sitting there rewatching the videos, and it kind of washed over me that we had done it. We had won and proved that, you know, we opened up the tournament to the international scene, and we were the best team to perform. Whether home side advantage or not is the discussion. I think we were very clearly the strongest team there. And you know, Josiah and I have talked adamantly about it's time to go to other arenas and prove that this isn't just, you know, home side advantage. It is, you know, it definitely did sadden me to make the decision a few months ago that I will not be able to travel for any tournaments this year due to a lot of life stuff that's going on. But hopefully, the next Nats in 2026, if it's possible, I'm going, and I am excited to prove that just because we were at home, it was not a fluke. So, or at the very least, give a good showing, honestly, and fight my heart out. So,
Definitely, man. Yeah, you proved your stuff this tournament. I was extremely impressed, and it was great to play with you. And yes, it's true that not all victories are the same. I think no one on our team would disagree that we had a huge advantage getting to practice at home, and having to be our home site, having the roster of players to choose from that we do to build such a strong A and B team. But still, we really made a good showing of it.
Feel like we made it a little. Yeah, I definitely feel like we decided to play the game on hard mode by mastering, I think it was 6 different lineups, 3 of which we just never played.
Yeah, remember what I said
so
about being overprepared. I'd much rather be overprepared than underprepared.
Yes, it was, because I remember we were kind of discussing that we were like, we're not going to be able to hide Josiah heavy because we might just, you know, lose games and we'll have to pull it out. And I think we were. I'm trying to say this and not make it sound like it was against the other teams. We were surprised that we didn't need to, because, you know, even you had gone in saying, you know, I'm going to have problems fighting against Cam and Snuffles. Are you sure that, you know, you want me to be heavy in these games? And Josiah and I just being like, yep. You know, yep. It was definitely something where we were also questioning it, what was going to happen and how it was all going to play out.
Yeah, I fully admit I played a lot better than I expected I would, and that was that was definitely a large part due to how well my team played, and I'm not just saying that to be humble. Like, it's a team game, and because I had such great supports, a lot of what I did worked.
There was admittedly a lot of those games where we would look at you and go, Luke, have confidence. And you would just be like, no. And we would go, well, we believe. And you would just be like, well, I can't argue with that.
Yeah. No, I had to play with confidence. I had to play with some savagery. Or else I think the doubts would have creeped in for sure.
For what it's worth, I think you had an amazing tournament as well, Luke. I think you played your heart out and you showed that whether it's you or Josiah, you've got what it takes to be our heavy. So,
well, thanks, Joe. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should wrap this puppy up, huh?
Yeah, it's probably been a little while. I have no idea how long we've been going.
Hour 45.
Such is the life of tag. You start yapping. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, any final words for the people?
Just again, I appreciate everybody coming out. You know, it makes my heart very full to be able to see everybody and to get to see my friends. Whether you're on the same team as me or not, it is always awesome to get to see everybody and get to, you know, test myself against everybody. And I do, again, appreciate everybody bearing with us through some rough stuff and everybody, you know, giving their all. I know it was also a late night tournament. We were hoping that it wouldn't be, and, you know, a lot of stuff that was not quite as ideal as we would have hoped. So I am, from the coordinator side of it, I am insanely grateful that everybody, you know, gave it their all. So
For sure. And I'm looking at my doc, and I forgot that I always asked this at the end of the podcast. What is one thing you want players to take away from this discussion?
That everyone can do this. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, what skill level it's going to be at. You can do this, right? If you put your mind to it, it might take a while. It may take, you know, several games of, you know, several hundred games of practice. It may take several tournaments for you to reach the point that you feel maybe that you are playing to the level that you truly deserve. And that's okay. It is okay to, you know, have to struggle. It is okay to, you know, fall short of expectations, but a lot like the Motor City Mutts, don't stop fighting. Keep pushing, keep trying, and you know, you'll definitely see results.
So you're saying don't stop believing and hold on to that feeling.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Streetlights, people.
We'll not sing it so we don't get the MCA.
Whoa.
But very, very much like believe in yourselves. You know, set realistic expectations for yourselves. Don't go into your first tournament going, we're gonna take, you know, second place, and then be frustrated when you take eighth. You know, set goals for yourself that are, instead of, you know, trophies, be like, I want to work on this tournament. I want to be better about my, you know, hit diff or accuracy or, you know, call outs. You know, don't look immediately for trophies. Look to improve and to be a good teammate, and the rest will fall into place.
Joe, thank you for the great words for the people. I think there's a lot of players that can relate to your journey, and I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of how much of a leader you've become over the time I've known you. You were a leader on our team, you're a leader of our site, and we're all grateful for the work you put in and the work you put into the community.
I am happy to do it. It's like I said, I've gotten to participate for 10 years with this, and I am happy that I still have a community that I can get to do this with.
Yeah. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up the show. So, you know, keep your gun up. What do they say? Can we plagiarize the resupply? Oh, I've been mischief.
Always remember to backtrack.
Yeah, what? Yeah.
I've been Sergeant Tucker. always remember to backtrack.
Nah, this
kids and
is
see
our
what
own
they say.
thing. We can just do whatever we want.
Mine is always keep your phaser up.
Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Bye.
That as well.